I spent my junior year in college in England. We had a month off between terms in the winter and the spring. My idiot friend Dave decided to come over during the spring break and travel with me on the continent. The first leg of the journey was to take a train from London to Dover. We would then take a ferry to Calais. We caught the last ferry to Calais, but we missed the last train connection to Paris. It was 9 p.m., and the next train for Paris wasn't going to leave until shortly after 5 a.m. the next morning. I gave Dave a choice. We could go try and find a cheap hotel and then take a train into Paris at around noon, or we could hang around in the train station all night and take the first train in the morning. Then we could sleep on the train into Paris. Dave thought that was a great idea, so we just hung around the train station and talked till about 10 p.m. It had been a long day, so I decided to stretch out on the benches and try to get some sleep. But the benches were wooden and way too short to get comfortable on. Dave had slept on the plane, so he was on a different time zone and he wasn't tired at the moment. Dave curled up on a bench, but he couldn't begin to fall asleep, so naturally he decided to go bug the crap out of me. I had found a bench that was probably 2 feet longer than all the rest. "Hey, how'd you find that bench?" asked Dave. I was almost asleep when my psychotic traveling companion began to interrogate me about my makeshift sleeping accommodation location abilities. "Dude, they're all over the place. Go find one." That response did not satisfy Dave. Dave was 5 inches taller than me, so in his cryptic mind, that entitled him to the longest bench. So Dave laid down between me and the back of the bench and pushed me onto the floor. Some things just aren't worth fighting over. He did just fly 8,000 miles to come see me, so I left him on the bench and went looking for new quarters. In less than a minute, I found a new bench that was probably a foot longer than the last one. I stretched out and went to sleep. Well, I tried to go to sleep. A couple of minutes later, I hear Dave walking over. "Hey, how'd you find that bench?" "Oh, crap. Here we go again. This one's mine," I tell him. "Go back to your bench." But no. Dave wants this bench. So he climbs on top of me and starts wrestling like a bear cub. Forget it. I leave and go back to my first bench. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, Dave is back and he wants my bench again. "But the other one is bigger, you idiot." Logic makes no impression on Dave. Dave is in psycho mode and he is not going to let me fall asleep. "Do you want this bench?" I ask him. "Yes," he responds. "Fine, then you stay here and I'm going over there." "Fine," he says. Of course, 2 minutes later, Dave is back and he wants the bench again. Now I'm fighting back. "Beat it," I tell him. He keeps wrestling for the bench. "Get out of here," I yell at him. He keeps worming his way onto the bench. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I ask him. He doesn't respond. Finally, I get up and grab him by the collar and get in his face. "What do you want?" "I want to go to Paris," he tells me. "We're going to Paris, you moron." "No," he tells me. "I want to go to Paris now." "There aren't any trains now, Dave." "I don't care. I didn't come to Europe to sit in a train station. I want to go to Paris now." Unfortunately, I am not as creative a thinker as Dave is. I have arrived too late to take a train to Paris. While I want to go to Paris, I understand that I must wait for the next train, which is not for another 7 hours. I do not have a train hidden up my ass that I can just pull out anytime I want and ride it to Paris. Dave apparently has options that have eluded my feeble mortal comprehension skills. So I ask him, "Okay, Dave, what do you want to do about this?" "Let's walk." "Walk? Walk? That is the stupidest thing I ever heard of." Now, I have to confess, I didn't know exactly how far it was from Calais to Paris. I had a Eurail pass. I was traveling by train. There's a major European city about 8 hours away, no matter what direction you go in. I hadn't bothered to memorize the mileage between cities because, stupid me, I hadn't planned on walking to any of them. Well, it's 180 miles to Paris, but I didn't have that information at the time. And now I had to argue with a crazy man. "Look, Dave, I don't know exactly how far it is to Paris, but it's got to be way more than 100 miles. Let's say, just for argument's sake, it's only 60 miles. A human being walks at about 3 miles an hour. Let's say that you can walk at 4 miles an hour. It's still going to take you over 15 hours to walk to Paris, and that's without taking a bathroom break or a snack break at any time. It's almost 11 p.m. and the train leaves just after 5 a.m. I am going to be in Paris at least 8 hours before you can walk there. The farther away Paris actually is, the more I am going to beat you. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to try to walk to Paris. We should wait here for the train." Facts, logic, and truth rarely dissuaded anyone from doing exactly what they wanted to do, least of all Dave. Dave blew up, called me a bunch of names intimating that I lacked manly courage, and charged off to the night like he was going to capture France once and for all for the homeland. I had traveled all over Europe alone during the winter break, and frankly, I was overjoyed to be doing it again. I was free of the madman. So, Dave doesn't walk out of the train station and walk down the road to get to Paris. Dave jumps down on the train tracks and follows them into Paris. It's the middle of the night, so you wouldn't expect anyone to be out, but there actually are some maintenance workers and the occasional security guard. But they aren't expecting anyone to walk to Paris on the railroad tracks. So Dave manages to escape the railway station without being noticed. Now, Dave doesn't have a map or a clue. He doesn't know if he's traveling south to Paris, east to Germany, or northeast to Belgium. He doesn't know anything, which makes executing his insane plan all the more easy for him. He just knows that he has successfully eluded a security guard and is on his way somewhere. About 20 minutes down the road, a train comes straight at him. "Aha!" thinks Dave. "An unscheduled train. I can take this train to Paris." I have no idea why Dave thinks that this train, in the middle of the night, is going to stop in Calais, turn around, and head back to, of all possible destinations, the exact one that he wants to go in. But Dave, with his pea-sized brain, has figured this all out, and he's racing back to the train station to catch the train and, unfortunately, to go get me. Dave had to sneak out of the train station, as you will recall. past the intense security precautions of maybe one roving security guard who wasn't looking for him and couldn't care less. Dave knows that he must now evade this watertight defense system and somehow sneak back into the train station. So when Dave approaches the train station, he executes his standard, foolproof, CIA-approved, guarded facility infiltration plan. He turns around and walks backward into the train station. In Dave's mind, if anyone spots him, they'll think he's leaving and will leave him alone. Since no one stopped him, he knows that he was right. So it's not even 1 hour later when I get woken up by Idiot Boy. "So, did you make it to Paris and back already?" I ask.
"There's a train! There's a train!" Dave explains excitedly.
"Yes, well, it is a train station," I point out.
"No, you retard! A train just came into the station! We need to get on that train and take it to Paris!"
"Dave, that train isn't leaving for Paris now. There are no departures until 5 a.m., I explained. Dave insisted that the train was ready to leave. I walked Dave over to the tracks. "This is where we board the train. See? No train." Dave insisted that he saw an unscheduled train arrive. So, if an unscheduled train could arrive, an unscheduled train could depart. You can't argue with logic like that, especially when you're talking to a self-centered, sheltered suburban nutjob with little or no grasp on reality. So I decided the only way to end this delusion was to play along. "Okay, Dave, take me to the mystery train." Dave walks to the end of the platform. He jumps down onto the train tracks. He walks around to the back of the building and he points at a train. "That train just arrived," he says. Dave had single-handedly found the maintenance yard.
"You idiot! They're working on that train. They do repairs here. That train isn't going anywhere. That's why it's over here, in a place that the passengers can't get to it."
Oddly enough, the Europeans don't hide the trains from the passengers. Dave is not persuaded. Dave is convinced that that train could leave at any minute, and we need to be on it. I was not going to break into that train and wait for it to depart to who knows where, so I offered Dave a deal. "Dave, you go ahead and find a way to climb through a window or get on board that train, and you hide out there until the train leaves. You have a Eurail pass, so no matter where that train goes, you have a valid ticket. I am going to wait in the train station. I am going to take the train to Paris. I will spend 2 days in Paris. Then I am going to take the first train to Berlin that leaves after 1 p.m. I will meet you on that train, okay?" Dave agreed, and he walked over to the train and started looking for an open window. I returned to the train station to finally get some sleep. 10 minutes later, Dave returned. He didn't try to steal my bench. He didn't try to get me to walk to Paris. He didn't try to get me to jimmy open a train window. He just went to a bench and laid down and went to sleep. And in the morning, when he woke up, he got on the train and he didn't talk to me the entire train ride into Paris. I didn't care.